Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. Welcome to the Players Ball Podcast, where we cover all sports far and wide. I am your host, Roddy. You can give the podcast a follow on Twitter at the Players Ball 1, as well as on Instagram at the Players Ball Podcast. And then we're broadcasting live from YouTube and SoundCloud right now at the Players Ball Podcast. And then go ahead and give me a follow on my personal Twitter and Instagram. Instagram is Roddy404, and then Twitter is Roddy Remastered. Now, again, it was a pretty interesting weekend in sports. The time we had away, there was a lot of things that went down, both abroad and here. The Olympics are finally over, so shout out to all the athletes that competed, won medals. U.S., of course, we came out on top because you know how we do it, baby. You feel me? But that was expected. So shout out, again, to everybody that competed. It was a weird games. It definitely started and ended very weird with no people in the stadium and, just having a real performance on some shit. But it's whatever. It was glad to, I was glad, should I say, to have, a bit of, nuanced sports, because some of these things like water polo and like rhythmic dancing and, all that other stuff is kind of weird and, outlier sports, but it's definitely interesting to see how hard these people train and how good they get. So definitely interesting. But now we got our summer league started up in the NBA. You're getting to see a couple of these rookies. We'll talk about that a little bit in action in Vegas. And football's still open, baby. So we ready. We're going to definitely get into a lot of things on this show today, but let's definitely start with our news segment. All right. Now, we're starting with some sad news. Legendary coach from Florida State, Bobby Bowden, he died at the age of 91. He was battling cancer as well. Definitely condolences to his family, all of his players, all the people who he impacted at Florida State. And you really couldn't say a lot bad about the man. I mean, although he kind of was a Trump supporter and said he wanted to get the vaccine so he could vote for Trump, he was still a good football coach. And he definitely decided, when he took over the team that, hey, if we get some black people in here, like, we might be really good at this recruiting and playing the football thing. The coaches that made those decisions back in the 80s and 70s and 60s, they really had the most success because they saw the game plan that was beyond just, bigotry and hate. And for that, I definitely commend him. So, again, prayers to his family, all of FSU family. Definitely lost a legend, and he definitely will be missed. Now, Luka signed a 5-year, $270 million extension with the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, he's just been on a tear from the playoffs this year. He also did his thing in, the Olympics, obviously, with Slovenia, pushing them and propelling them basically everywhere they went. I mean, the team around him was playing definitely above their standards, but he was the spark. He was the guy, and he was, I think, only one or two triple doubles in Olympic history. He has one of them, so definitely deserves the money, and he's going to be the centerpiece for Dallas for the time being, or time coming, should I say. But I mean, there's not really a bad deal you can give a guy with that kind of value, that kind of, just spark and consistency that he can bring to your team. I do think he needs to start shooting from outside a little bit better. I think he can also be a little bit smarter, just, with his mental. You saw a lot of stupid technical fouls this past year. So once he gets those little intricate details of his game together, I think he's definitely going to be, a menace to the entire league for a long time. So shout out to him for getting his money. Now, to celebrate some NFL players who, and by the way, for those who are confused, they did do two, classes worth of inductions this year at the Pro Football Hall of Fame because obviously COVID and, they weren't allowed to last year. So the biggest names were, Peyton Manning, Jimmy Johnson, Charles Woodson, Bill Cowher, Troy Polamalu, Edgerrin James, who Edgerrin James had by far the best speech of the entire night. My man cited that he went from gold teeth to a gold jacket. He mentioned his inmate number, in the Hall of Fame, which is definitely something that I love to see. If you know Edgerrin James' story, he has really been through it. And, he's a real got it out the mud type player. And he's just insanely talented, or was insanely talented at the game of football. And it was well deserved. I mean, I definitely feel like he is one of the people who don't really get mentioned enough in those Peyton Manning eras because of what he did and what he was able to supply to the Colts. So definitely shout out to Edge, and shout out to all the guys who went into the Hall of Fame. There wasn't one single person who didn't deserve it to the utmost. So definitely was great to see. Now, to kick it back a little bit, because that was our only football topic except for our last one, but we'll get to that in a second. The NBA Summer League, like I was saying, is getting going, man. And Jalen Johnson, Jalen Green, Cade, they're all looking really good. Jalen Johnson had 20 and 10 for the Hawks in the beginning of their Summer League efforts. And Sharif Cooper also was looking good, man. I mean, he was really good at facilitating, being able to beat his man off the dribble. Gonna have to work on the turnovers and everything like that. Definitely got to see how good he can be on defense as well. But it's looking good for the Hawks, man. As a Hawks homer, it's really looking good. And I think we can be, again, one of the surprises of how well we can dominate other teams who are lacking in certain areas. So definitely looking forward to how the rest of this Summer League pans out. Currently watching Jalen Suggs and Jonathan Kuminga as we are recording this right now, and these guys are balling out as well. So definitely going to be keeping an eye on that Summer League, seeing what's going on. And by the way, if you bet on the Summer League, you are degenerate, okay? Don't bet on the Summer League. That's not the move ever. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know half of these guys, half of their motivating factors. All of that is just differentiating over and over and over again with each game. So don't do it. Now, KD, he signed his extension too. That was last week. 4 years, $198 million. I mean, none really else you can say after his performance abroad and then in this year's playoffs. I mean, he's just him, man. He's really him. And I think that, even though this is going to push him, I think he's 32 now. This is going to last him until he is about 36, 37. And I mean, as long as he can shoot, he's going to be good, I can assume. So the Nets are definitely trying to protect their investment. Again, it's still going to be interesting to see how they can put some pieces around him. But ultimately, I think this is the smart thing to do, to extend the guy who you see, as the centerpiece to this thing. Now, this is probably the dumbest story we got. The NBA is doing this fake thing where they care about tampering again. And they're investigating the Kyle Lowry and the Lonzo Ball moves to Miami and Chicago, respectively. And I just don't really understand where the competitive advantage is being drawn from talking to a guy. I mean, most of these guys know what they're going to get from these teams because the salary cap is public. Like, agents know agents, so they have an idea of who's going to sign what. What the market's looking like. Like, if these guys aren't really talking to the other teams, then they already know all the information that they need to know to, not have to talk to them at all. So honestly, man, I don't know why the NBA keeps doing this thing where they care about it and they try to make it this big deal. Like, it's just negotiations, man. It's just business. And usually players know what they want. Usually players aren't on the fence. Like, they're either gonna get the money from where, they are now, or they're gonna find somewhere else where they want to go. So it's just the life of the game, man. You're gonna have to get used to it if you're the NBA eventually, but they never do. So we'll have to just keep getting annoyed by this BS that they keep giving us, but it's whatever. Now, to take it to the diamond real quick, the Phillies have won 8 straight, and they are in first place in the AL East. The Mets are doing the thing the Mets have done for the past 3 or 4 years, where they start off super hot. You know, we say, oh, the Mets are back. They're one of the best teams in the division, this, that, and the third. And then we see that, oh, they are choking. They get a major injury from DeGrom again. Syndergaard is already out. Their hitting has been obviously they got Baez in the trade deadline to kind of bolster the offense a little bit, but he hasn't really been it either. So the Phillies are in the driver's seat. I mean, the Braves are looking like they're going to be continuously inconsistent. So I'm not going to bank on them winning the division, but I definitely can see the Phillies taking over and, getting a good lead going into September, which is going to be a death sentence for the Mets if they can't catch up. So shout out to the Phillies. Now, the White Sox, they swept the Cubs this weekend. And, I mean, it's kind of funny how, the South Side was always little brother, but now they're back on top again. Now that they got some pieces and some pitching and, some young players who are promising. So, look, the South Side is going to rise again. And, they're on a tear right now against the Twins. So, it's looking good for the White Sox. I think they can be a formidable opponent. A lot of people have them winning the World Series. I think baseball's playoff tournament is way too random to ever say, oh, yeah, they're definitely going to win the World Series before at least, beginning of October. But we'll definitely see how these races play out. Again, it's still a lot of baseball to play, and it's going to be an interesting stretch to these playoffs, so we're excited for it. But the last baseball story is Anthony Rizzo catching COVID. Shout out to him. Hopefully he gets well soon. Another bat that the Yankees can't afford to miss because they've been teetering. And, they obviously got their butts kicked twice by the Mariners this weekend, which the Mariners aren't that great of a team. They don't nearly have the payroll. So that's, again, important for the Yankees to realize, hey, we're getting beat by teams who are not spending as much as us. So maybe the formula we're working right now ain't the best, but hey, that's why I'm not running the Yankees. And to end our news segment today, I just want to tell y'all about Kirk Cousins. Now, if you haven't heard, Kirk Cousins, he was in COVID protocol because he came in proximity with somebody who tested positive, and he is a anti-vaxxer. He's thought to be a Trumper, and he said that he will, quote, do anything, as in, maybe building a plexiglass house around him during meetings and during, different training camp festivities just to go the extra mile. And he said, quote, he will do anything except take the vaccine to prevent his teammates from getting COVID, I guess. And again, I don't understand why y'all are doing these mental gymnastics to justify stupidity. I mean, I can understand why you may be afraid, why you may be hesitant, why you may be reluctant, but just don't be stupid, man. If you're gonna say you don't want the vaccine, then say you don't want the vaccine and get on with it. If you think it's personal, then fine. Do the little, oh, it's a personal issue, it's a private issue BS, and then move on. But don't say stupid stuff like you're gonna build a plexiglass house around you to prevent everybody from getting COVID. Like, are you serious? I just don't understand it. I really don't. But that's our news segment for the day. Now it's time to get in the big three, and boy, do we got a big three. All right, welcome to the big three. 3 biggest topics in sports right now. And you already know what number 1 was going to be. It is Barcelona's week, month, and next probably 3 to 4, 5 years of reckoning. There is no one to blame but themselves. Joseph Bartomeu is definitely the main culprit of what's going on. But, I mean, it was just bad business all around. And nothing but enablers and just not smart football people. And as a Barcelona supporter myself, I know the club was built off of heritage and actual passion for the game, right? And over the past, couple of years with Joseph Bartomeu over, the board and everything at Barca, it was just money, really money. And I say this in joking, in a joking sense, that they get all of their transfer ideas from Marca. They don't consult the actual football people to try to find these diamonds in the roughs, or even people out of the best academy in the entire world, La Masia. Like, they just don't want to really share the same passion that the people that came before them do for the game. And this is the result of it. I mean, you see the best player in your club's history bawling his eyes out because you guys just mismanaged the money. That's period what you did. And it's just mind-boggling to me how they are not getting more bad press from Spain and everybody else just on how stupid they are. I mean, look, La Liga definitely should be mad at Barca for everything that they did with the Super League and tripling down, like quadrupling down, saying we're still going to try to create it at, the soonest as possible because we're broke, and so is Madrid and so is Juve, but we need it. So I get La Liga being really, tough on the rules, because why wouldn't you be? Like, you definitely tried to backstab us and leave our league in the dust, and thus, leaving all of these other smaller clubs who are already struggling in the dirt. So it's just insane to me how incompetent Barca has been. Barca has been so incompetent that this is the stat that is the most mind-boggling to me. Their player salary is literally 110% of their revenue. So for those who aren't the greatest at math, for every dollar Barcelona makes, they owe their players $1.10. That means they're in debt, and they're not running a good business. And obviously, La Liga is not going to continue to let them mortgage the future and take out all these loans. I mean, like, they have $1 billion in debt already that is just unsolved. And the biggest player in the world will help you, of course, but he has to be compensated as such. And it's just making for a stew of poop. And it's just so disappointing to see a guy who wants to stay at a club, the club that literally paid for his surgery when he was 13 years old. Like, for those who don't understand, this is not Brady leaving the Patriots. This is not Jordan leaving the Bulls. Like, this kid has been in Barcelona since he was 13 years old. Again, they promised to pay for his surgery that potentially could have ended his career, and they've been loyal and faithful to him as he has to them for the entire time until recently. And these spending issues are directly correlated to why he is not going to be on the team anymore. So, I mean, I hate it for him. The stupid signings and everything that went on in the past 5 years at Barca are just embarrassing. And maybe they get a deal done. Like, there's still a lot of reports that they're trying to get something done, even in spite of the reports saying that, he's agreed in principle to a 2-year deal with PSG to play with them. But again, he really wants to be in Barca, and he's going to try to do everything that he can to stay there. So that's what it is. Now, topic number 2 is the New Orleans Saints, my New Orleans Saints. And I know we went over a few things that were plaguing them last week in our NFC South preview, but I mean, Michael Thomas, he's very cryptic, and he put out another cryptic tweet detailing that, you weren't telling your side of the story to protect them and their image, kind of alluding to the Saints and maybe their training staff, Sean Payton, whoever, just saying that basically maybe you mismanaged it and it wasn't me who was at fault, which I can definitely see that. I mean, he was in the game in garbage time in week 1, which is the reason he got injured in the first place. And potentially he could have maybe had the surgery then. I mean, he was definitely trying to play since he had a good idea that this was going to be Drew's last go-round. So I definitely understand. But I do see why he would put some blame on the training staff and on the coaches for not saying, hey, Mike, we understand that this might keep you out for the rest of the year, but hey, we want you to be healthy. We want you to be the guy going into the future. And with him gone and him not having the best relationship with the team, you have had a Deontay Harris injury. Will Lutz is now looking to miss the beginning of the season, and we had to sign another kicker. So it's not looking good, man. It's not looking good. I mean, we are hearing good things from Jameis and, his ability to read defenses and be good in the red zone and have good practices with these first teams. But, I mean, a lot of key pieces are missing, man. And we haven't even found out what's going to be of Marshawn Lattimore. Like, we just have a lot of questions to answer still. And it's scary if you're a Saints fan because, again, we haven't had this type of uncertainty in a while. And I don't know, man. The playoffs are it's looking rough, especially with this 17-game season. It's going to be a tough one. But, I'm always riding. But it's going to be hard, man. I'm not going to lie to y'all. It's going to be hard. Now, number 3 is the Colorado Rockies and the incident that happened at their stadium. If you didn't know, they had on the broadcast, I think this was on Sunday, apparently somebody yelled the N-word, and when we're talking N-word, we're not talking about A, we're talking about ER, and yeah, it was clear as day on the broadcast. Now, apparently the Rockies released a statement hours later saying that apparently the fan was referring to the mascot, whose name is Dinger, which, okay, but they're saying basically that the fan left, before they could find out who he was. They're still doing an investigation, but of course, they vehemently are disagreeing with everything that was said. If it was a racial slur and, they don't tolerate hate and bigotry and stuff like that, I get it. But I wanted to talk about this because the last thing that the MLB needs is a race issue. Like, it's the absolute last thing they need right now. They're already having, struggles with viewership. They're really having a hard time getting Black American players, into their league. A lot of, Dominican players, obviously, and Puerto Rican players of color are in the league, but not as many Black players that are from America. And it's definitely something the MLB needs to work on in order to grow the game how they want to and make it a more interesting game, which they continuously try to do with different methods and things like that. But to me, it never works. It definitely just dumbs the game down. But this is the last thing they need by far. Like, this is something that the MLB themselves need to start coming in and taking over and investigating and just showing your fans that we actually care about these things. And we're going to make sure that, if this is a consistent thing that a lot of these players are going through, which if you talk to some of these players, they are going through it. Torrey Hunter told us about Boston. So I think the MLB definitely needs to be ahead of this and doesn't need to be falling behind. But it's Rob Manfred, not my favorite GM. I mean, not my favorite commissioner, should I say. Not his biggest fan at all. But, that's the guy for the job. So we'll see what happens. But now that we got that done, I want to thank you for another episode of the Players Ball Podcast. Again, you can follow me on Twitter at Roddy Remastered and at Roddy404. But most importantly, please give us a follow on Twitter at The Players Ball 1 and then at The Players Ball Podcast on Instagram. On Thursday, well, I think it's going to be Friday, actually. We're going to have a NFC West preview, one of the most competitive divisions in the entire NFL. We're going to have our guy Kenny. We're going to have a visual podcast as well on Friday, so that's going to be exciting. definitely be tuned to our YouTube to see that and check that out. But until then, we'll holler at y'all later. Please be safe. And yeah, we'll have that NFC West preview for you on Friday. See you then.